It is Friday, October the 19th, and this is The Drill. And thank you very much. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America, because I'm the only one that makes the presumption for the status quo. So on Facebook yesterday, there was an article about, and it showed a picture of high school students carrying some kind of banner about being democratic socialists or socialist democrats or whatever. And there is no such thing, by the way. It's a contradiction in terms. But that says that more high schoolers are going socialist. And the article goes on to try to explain why they think this is happening, and they're getting it wrong. And the reason they're getting it wrong is because it damn well doesn't matter. Okay, if you're under 18 years of age, you're unemancipated, and you cannot form contracts, you can't buy cigarettes, you can't vote, you can't join the army, you can't drink, you can't do anything without a parent's permission. So your opinion doesn't matter. Okay, let me say it again. If you are a child, you're under 18 years of age in this country, your opinion doesn't matter. Therefore, I don't care what you're interested in. I don't care if you think you're a socialist. I don't care if you think you're a capitalist. I don't care what you think about anything. My concern is that you live long enough and be healthy enough to live long enough to get to the age of 18, get to the age of majority. Then I will give a damn about what it is, your political opinions, and their potential effects on society at large. And nobody should care. No one should care about what children have to say. The old adage is true. Children should be seen and not heard. Now, the day that they decide to lower the age of majority to 17, 16, so that some high schoolers are going to be of the age of majority, then it might be relevant. But until then, whatever children have to say is by and large sociopolitically irrelevant. So, when I come back, Ayn Rand's lexicon and the word of the day. Okay, this is Ayn Rand's lexicon with the concept of the day. I got to remember to say that. There's and it's important because one of the ways that the left kind of gets around, wiggles around things, and is it is true that words are arbitrary, sensible signs with meanings imposed on them by convention. That's the definition of a word. But it is not the definition of a concept. But the left likes to forget that last part, that it's not the definition of a concept, and stick with the first part so that they can say, aha, you see, everything is relative. What things mean is, and what the essences of things are, is up for a vote. It's just a matter of popularity. So, and a matter, therefore, of power. So we will feel free, we, the left, will feel free to go ahead and alter, change, abolish any words that we see fit. So, anyways, concept of the day, and the concept of the day is communication. Reason is the only means of communication among men, and an objectively perceivable reality is their only common frame of reference. When these are invalidated, i.e. held to be irrelevant in the field of morality, force becomes men's only way of dealing with one another. Concepts and therefore language are a primary tool of cognition, not of communication, as is usually assumed. Communication is merely the consequence, not the cause, nor the primary purpose of concept formation. A crucial consequence of invaluable importance to men, but still only a consequence. Cognition precedes communication. The necessary precondition of communication is that one have something to communicate. This is true even of communication among animals, or of communication by grunts and growls among inarticulate men, let alone of communication by means of so complex and exacting a tool as language. So that was the concept of the day, communication. And when I come back, we're going to be taking a look at, I believe it'll be, yes, Breaking Bad and philosophy, better living through chemistry. And thank you very much. Breaking Bad, Better Living Through Chemistry. A rather bad series because it is, let me see, there it is. It's a rather bad series because it posits a malevolent universe. You know, that is the model it is using. That one, there's a lot of shows that do that make out the whole universe to be really bad. Everybody's bad in it. Everything is bad in it. People really don't have any free will. They're forced to do what they do by powers beyond their control. Everybody lives pretty squalid and ugly lives, and live desperately. So, but it was well written. It was well produced, well acted. It was first rate in all respects except for the general overall concept of the show. Now, when we were left this last time, we were dealing with Walt, who's the main character, his killings, his morality in general. And one of the issues they're bringing up here in terms of analyzing his morality is the people that he's killed, directly and indirectly. And we're at right now is collateral damage. We've delved a bit into Walt's moral guilt in the deaths of 9 people who are most clearly directly killed due to Walt's actions, inactions, or orders. But there are others who die, arguably because of Walter White, though less directly. Notably, the deaths of the 167 aboard Wayfarer 515 and Donald Margulis, who kills himself thereafter in response, no doubt, to the plane crash and his daughter's death. His daughter was Jane, and as we saw, Walter is morally guilty in part for her death. Her death leads to her father's error, causing the crash of the plane and the deaths of the 167. Is Walter at all morally responsible for the Wayfarer 515 deaths and Donald's suicide? Looking again at the elements of moral responsibility, including causation, capacity, motivation, and consequences, and justification, it's a stretch to hold Walt morally responsible for these deaths, though his actions are complexly implicated in the 2 related events of the Wayfarer crash and Donald's suicide. And some of Walt's decisions helped lead to them. They seem far too remote to blame upon Walt. He's a cause, but not the proximate or immediate cause of these deaths. His actions and decisions created their possibility, but did not make them inevitable. Rather, Donald Margulis held the capacity to avoid both the crash of the Wayfarer 515, perhaps reduced a bit due to his emotional state, but it was his choice to return to work and his own death. Yes, Walt bears moral blame for Jane's death, but her addiction, her choices, and her actions seem also to be a family trait. Donald is wrestling with recovery from his addiction as well. Walt did not make Jane take heroin, nor did he fail to ensure that she remained clean. Donald's failures were implicated in her death. Sometimes just loving your child isn't enough. Walt actively intervenes to save Jessie, after all. Donald trusts his daughter too much and fails to intervene when he could have to save her life. Donald's guilt is real and deserved, though Walt is surely not blameless. Donald also had the final responsibility to not return to his job directing air traffic, one of the most stressful jobs on the planet, and taking the lives of thousands of people every day into his hands while still mourning the loss of his daughter. Ultimately, however, we should hold Walt accountable for a lot of harm. His excuse is flimsy. Lots of people die, leaving their families with no money or legacy. Perhaps his earlier decisions have led him to this point. We don't know why he left Gray Matter, whether pride, ego, jealousy, or some other factor caused his split with Elliot. But his family love him and respect him for who he is, or who he was before he breaks bad. By the end of season 4, he's broken evil, just as evil as Gus, though apparently bent on becoming just as successful in his new life of crime. He has taken his wife down this path too, corrupting her, involving her in a conspiracy, and endangering his family and friends. Walt's moral responsibility is complex in numerous cases, as we have seen, but broad as well, applicable to a whole range, a community of parties whose lives have changed for the worse because of Walt's decisions and actions. Like the fate of any Greek anti-hero, Walt's end in this geek tragedy can only be doom. We will see how many more he takes down with him in the process. So that's the end of chapter 1. And one of the things I wanted to note about this show that was also interesting is that there seemed to be, because all of this, the whole show takes place in a middle class setting. If you had to describe it in one short phrase, I would say middle class. This took place in a single family. Walt and his family and his relatives and whatnot, they lived in single family homes in a suburb with a swimming pool, complete with a swimming pool in the backyard. Because the plane crash episode, there is the shots of I believe it was a teddy bear that was singed, a singed teddy bear floating in the pool, because the accident happens in the skies basically over Walt's house. And a lot of the debris ends up on his property, and some of it in his swimming pool. So kind of a chickens come home to roost kind of thing. But it also, I think, again, has to do with has something to do with middle class, and making some kinds of points about middle class lifestyles, living in the suburbs and having a swimming pool, etc. So when we come back, I'm going to be reading from Philosophy and House, Everybody Lies. Thank you very much, and welcome back. House and Moral Luck. This is Chapter 4 by Jane Dryden. The Problem of Moral Luck. A patient presents with a complicated set of symptoms. The team of doctors comes up with 2 plausible diagnoses, each with a different treatment. Each treatment will cure the patient if the diagnosis turns out to be correct. But, of course, in a pattern familiar to viewers of House, either treatment could kill the patient if the diagnosis is wrong. If the doctors are right, they will be praised. If they are wrong, even if they are not punished, they will still regret their actions. The patient's family will be angry at the team if the diagnosis is wrong. The team has killed their loved one, and surely that is cause for blame. Or is it? Is the team really to blame in this case, if they had no real way of knowing which of the 2 diagnoses would be correct? What if there was some small symptom they missed? Are they now to blame for their negligence, even if other doctors might have missed the same symptom? If they're not blameworthy when they get it wrong, then how do we justify praising them when they get it right? We don't want to blame someone for something that isn't his fault, something beyond his control. We can call this the control principle. I want to inject here that what he just said is talking about, what he's really talking about is called determinism, right? Determinism is the fiction that nobody has free will, that everybody's actions are forced on them by powers beyond their control. And so if that's the case, if everything is beyond your control, then you're not to blame for anything, are you? And that's used in the cases of homelessness. The homeless are not to be blamed according to the left, because the left are big determinists. And the left says that you can't blame the homeless. It's not a crime to be homeless. Okay? And so the implication here, when they're saying that, is that the homeless are not at fault. They're not at fault because they're not homeless of their own free will, but because of they're forced to be by powers beyond their control. And so what we need to do is change society. And then if we change society, we won't have homelessness anymore. Homelessness will just simply disappear. BS. Absolute crap. The fact is, they do have free will, and they should be held accountable. If you're homeless, that's fine. Again, there's no law against being homeless, and there shouldn't be. But there are laws against trespassing, against assault, against battery, against vandalism, against intravenous drug use. And those are the laws that should be enforced. The homeless break those laws, they should be cited, and if they fail to show up for their court dates, then arrested and incarcerated. That's the way it should be handled. But just wanted to let you know that's what this author is getting to, even though they don't call it determinism. That's what they're getting to. We can call this the control principle. But paradoxically, we blame people more when their actions cause serious harm than when those same actions, through sheer luck, cause no harm at all. For example, a drunk driver who kills someone has done something far worse, we feel, than a drunk driver who does not kill anyone. This paradox that we are responsible only for what we control, and yet we are also responsible for things beyond our control, is known in philosophy as the problem of moral luck. It complicates our ideas about how moral responsibility is supposed to work. While consideration of the nature of luck and the importance of factors beyond your control has long been a part of moral philosophy, the current discussion of moral luck grew out of two papers written in 1976 by Bernard Williams and Thomas Nagel. Nagel's paper pointed out that the problem of moral luck shows that there's something strange about our most basic ideas of praise and blame. Nagel writes, the view that moral luck is paradoxical is not a mistake, ethical or logical, but a perception of one of the ways in which the intuitively acceptable conditions of moral judgment threatened to undermine it all. And that's the end of this particular section of this particular chapter. And I wanted to get to this one where they talk about luck. Let's see. Yet we're also responsible is known in philosophy the problem of moral luck. A drunk driver, we feel far worse than, and I suppose that they got a point. I don't understand where he comes up, and a lot of times philosophers today will come up with problems that really don't exist, and that's what I see. That's the game here. Is that they call this the problem of moral luck. There is no problem. We consider when your actions result in somebody else's death needlessly, negligently, then that's much worse than if your actions don't cause the death of somebody else. It might be something as if not even driving drunk. It could be something as innocent as you're swinging a golf club. You're swinging a baseball bat in preparation to, maybe you're going to go into a batting cage or something like that. Now, if you're just swinging the baseball bat and to get ready to the cage and everything's fine, you get in the batting cage, you do your thing, nobody thinks anything of it. Now, if you're swinging the baseball bat and you accidentally hit somebody with that bat while you're practicing with it, of course, everybody thinks that's bad. And it is, especially if you're doing it in a negligent way. You're in a location where you're likely to hit people and you end up hitting somebody. Yes, because you should know better. And because you have free will. And I think that's probably what he's talking about when he says the issue of moral luck is really, again, about ultimately about determinism. It's not about moral luck at all. So, let's see. This is moral paradoxical, not a mistake, ethical or logical. Wait a minute. Oh, this is House. House is another one, although it's not as much of a negative or a downer in terms of having the premise. It doesn't have exactly a benevolent universe premise to it. There are some people in the show, the House show, that are, I suppose, there are people that are likable, as opposed to Breaking Bad. Everybody in Breaking Bad is really really a bit of a turd. The only one that escapes that is the infant. They have Walt and his wife have a new child, an infant, but the infant really has no role other than appearing, so sort of a background role. But everybody else that has any lines in the movie is really a bit of a reprobate. They're all a little bit scummy and sleazy, except maybe not so much his son, who is suffering from cerebral palsy or is otherwise handicapped. I haven't analyzed his participation in the show all that much, but everybody else is really kind of, none of these are people that I would want to be friends with. That I would want to go out of my way to shake hands with and sit down and break bread with them and have dinner with them. The brother-in-law is a DEA agent, but he's also kind of he shoots and kills a drug dealer, and then they take the drug dealer's teeth and encase that in because he created a grill of either gold or silver or something like that. The drug dealer did, and so the DEA agents take those out of his mouth and encase them in some kind of clear plastic block, and present it to the brother-in-law as a gift. So the whole show is like that, where it's just all it's very dark. There's very few people in it at all that that have any redeeming value whatsoever. So, but now with House, it does seem that there are some people in there that have some redeeming features. They're not as rude as House, but it seems to me that a lot of House is it's a malevolent universe premise also, but not from the standpoint of everybody's evil. Everybody's out to screw you and gain at their own expense, where might makes right and the ends justify the means kind of situation, but that everybody's stupid. And also the motto of the show, everybody lies. That seems to be the reoccurring theme throughout the show, is that one of the things the House does is he assumes, and in the show correctly so, that everybody that talks to him is lying. And so he spends a lot of time psychoanalyzing people. People will tell him his ex-wife, House's ex-wife, tells him, he says, gee, are you upset today? She says, no, I'm fine. Well, let me see. Normally you're wearing such and such piece of jewelry. Today you're not wearing it, so therefore you must have something on your mind. You must be preoccupied. And she comes back and says, well, no, it could mean that I've lost it or I did this. And then he breaks it down further. No, because that's one of the most important pieces of jewelry. You never go without it, blah, 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 blah. It's this whole long psychoanalysis thing. So the whole point of it is to prove, and eventually she breaks down and says, okay, fine. Yes, there is something bothering me. So there you go. She's a liar. And basically everybody lies. Everybody's a liar. And so there's really no innocent people on Earth, that kind of thing. So it has that kind of a dark quality, especially with his patients. But my way of looking at it is he's wrong. The show is wrong when it says everybody lies. Everybody has an expectation of privacy, because everything that he's doing when he's talking about lying is basically he's probing people's private lives. And if you're a patient, he has to get into their private lives. And nobody wants to give up. Just because I'm your patient doesn't mean that you get to have access to every nook and cranny of my personal life. I'm going to give you only that information which is going to help you, the doctor, treat me, whether it's a checkup or whether I'm getting prepped for surgery. Okay, because as far as I'm concerned, you don't need to know anything else. Okay, you just need to know the relevant material information. Okay, and the fact that I keep that items from you, I keep things private, doesn't make me a liar or a hypocrite. It makes me a normal individual who has a normal, reasonable, rational expectation of privacy. So when we Well, let's see. No. Well, I'll go ahead and do it. Why not? When I come back, I haven't gone that long today, right? Yeah. So when I come back, I'm going to read a couple of jokes from the New York City Cab Drivers Joke Book. Thank you very much. Heard any good ones lately? Jim Peach, a real New York City cabbie, has heard them all. From business people, unemployed laborers, Wall Street lawyers, prostitutes, writers, tourists, drug dealers, and lovers. All from the back seat of his cab as he makes his way around New York City. Jim always asks his customers for their best jokes, and here are his favorites. More than 400 clean jokes, dirty jokes, ethnic jokes, religious jokes, dirty Ernie jokes, jokes about musicians, bartenders, hookers, everyone. The New York City Cab Drivers Joke Book also includes true stories about Jim's writers and original illustrations by Jim himself, the cabbie with the best collection of jokes in New York City. One night, while I was driving my cab, I was in an accident. I was taken to the hospital and was pronounced clinically dead for 5 minutes before I was revived. During the time I was dead, I went to heaven, and I clearly remember what it was like. I was walking around checking out everything, and I saw a large wall with hundreds of clocks on it. But, oddly, the clocks had only minute hands, and they would jump at irregular intervals. An angel happened to be passing by, and I asked her what these clocks were for. "Oh," she said, "that's how we keep track of how often people masturbate on Earth." I looked more closely, and sure enough, under each clock there's a little nameplate. So I had a marvelous time looking up all the people I knew. But after a few minutes, I said to the angel, "Wait a minute. I don't see my best friend Carl Smith's name here," he says. "Carl Smith's name here." The angel said, "Oh, yes. They keep that one over in the office. They're using it for a fan." What do you call a lesbian Eskimo? A Klondike. And on that note, we come to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. I thank you for listening, and until next time, have a great day.